So, A Storm of Swords is the third book in George R. R. Martin's A Song of Ice and Fire series, and it is by far the biggest game changer in terms of plot related mumbo jumbo. Um, all the murders and backstabbings are taken up a notch, and slowly but surely, we are introduced to characters and plot lines that we really never even knew existed. Um, by now, you know I'm going to spoil everything in this book. Um, but just so you know, I'm really going to spoil everything in this book because A Storm of Swords is the spoileriest of spoiler books in the history of spoilers. Uh, it, it is crazy. It really is. You wouldn't believe it. Everything from certain characters losing certain appendages to other characters losing their lives and their pets. So, my dear, dear friends, my dear, dear friends of the internet, you have been warned. So, probably the biggest and most unexpected thing to happen in the series, let alone in the book, uh, at least for those who have not been subjected to pop culture as I have, um, that would be the Red Wedding. That's probably a good place to start. The Red Wedding, in which Robb Stark is slain before his mother's eyes, and Edmure Tully and Great John Umber are taken prisoner. One of the Manderly sons is slain. The awesome Daisy Mormont, who did not exist in the show, that is a crime, and also Cat herself is slain. Cat Stark, mother of Robb and Arya and all the others, she is murdered, but only after slitting the throat of a mentally challenged child and clawing half her face off. So yeah, not only did another point of view character die, but uh, uh, she didn't look good doing it either. Yeah, Jamie Lannister sends his regards. Uh, I guess a lot has been said about the Red Wedding by now, about the phrase and about Robb Stark's doomed marriage. But I wanted to talk about that marriage for a bit because I don't think it gets enough attention. Because to me, something doesn't add up here. Um, Robb marries this girl called Jane Westerling of House Westerling, who happen to be vassals of the Lannisters. Robb takes their castle, is injured in the process, and through a weird series of events, Jane happens to be the one looking after him. Sweet Jane Westerling. Well, they fall in love, and Robb puts aside his future betrothal to a daughter of Walder Frey in favor of her. That's of course a problem, as House Frey takes insult to this, and Red Wedding. But I think it's interesting that in the books, the Westerlings aren't at the wedding, except for one guy who's watching the direwolf at the time. Well, there's one Westerling at the wedding. Um, but of course, the wedding is between Edmure and Rosalind Frey as a sort of peace offering, And it might have been wise for Robb not to bring the Westerlings, but it also seems a little convenient to me. Um, I can't help but wonder, were the Westerlings in on it? Were some of them in on it? Uh, it seems to me that Jane and uh, the younger Westerlings actually love Robb and think he's great. The mother and father, don't ask me how, but there's something a little shifty about them. They are Bannermen to the Lannisters, or they were Bannermen to the Lannisters. Uh, and Tyrion makes a comment later about how, oh, you'd think they'd have learned from the Rains and Tarbex by now, that Lannisters do not suffer traitors to live, right? Uh, so I'm thinking maybe they didn't actually betray House Lannister. Maybe Tywin told the mother or the father to put Jane in a room with Robb, and sort of arrange somehow that they'd fall in love, and maybe forcing the Freys into a position in which they'd accept the Red Wedding as an option. Uh, I mean, we do see Papa Lannister pull some similar tricks on Roose Bolton and the Bloody Mummers, right? Sort of playing people against each other, preying on their fears and their beliefs, and asking weird favors, which don't really add up until later. Uh, I don't know. I'm not entirely sure how it works out with the Westerlings, but Tywin was pretty darn quick to pardon the Westerlings once the war was basically over. You would think he wouldn't do that if they had actually disobeyed him. A whole slight against House Lannister and all that. Of course, another slight against House Lannister would be losing its patriarch to an angry dwarf. But I'm getting ahead of myself. There's another wedding that needs talking about first. A much more satisfying, if equally stressful, experience. That would be the Purple Wedding. Also in this book, in which that evil little piece of crap that is Joffrey finally gets his just desserts. Literally. Well, sort of. Well, so Joffrey has this magnificent wedding. I think it was 77 courses, singers and jugglers, and everyone's playing the Rains of Castamere, having this great time, until a troupe of comic dwarves comes out. It's this very kind of lewd performance, but Joffrey loves it. And he orders that Tyrion take part in this little mock battle that the dwarves are having. Tyrion refuses and starts making insults at Joffrey. Joffrey fights back, and then mere moments later, Joffrey dies, drinking poisoned wine and stuffing his face full of pigeon pie. And everyone thinks Tyrion did it because, he once threatened to geld Joffrey, and he kidnapped Tommen once, and he sent Myrcella off to be a ward of the freaking Dornish, which totally hasn't backfired yet, but it will. And what's amazing about the whole affair is that it was actually the old woman Olenna Tyrell who arranged this whole scheme with poison hidden in Sansa's hairnet, and somehow the old arthritic hands managed to slip it into Joffrey's cup. And yeah, I'm not actually sure how about the particulars there. It it might have been Marjorie, the bride to be, who did the poisoning. Uh, because her and Joffrey were drinking from the same cup until that point. And I don't think Olenna would risk the life of her beautiful, charming granddaughter just to kill Joffrey. The whole point is to spare Marjorie the having to be married to Joffrey in the first place. So maybe Marjorie did the poisoning at just the right minute. Uh, it might be likely. I don't know, but really the most amazing part to me, the most amusing part perhaps, is the how it was a part of Littlefinger's evil plans. He actually convinced the Tyrells that Joffrey was evil, and while I don't think it was their idea to frame Tyrion, I definitely think it was Littlefinger's idea to frame Tyrion because Littlefinger wants Sansa, and he can't get Sansa if Tyrion's alive and well and married to her. Yeah, that happened in this book as well, and it was super uncomfortable, that whole wedding. Uh, and the thing I love is that Littlefinger consistently screws Tyrion over at almost every turn. Uh, I mean, right? Because the whole bit with the Valyrian steel dagger was Littlefinger framing Tyrion for the attempted murder of little Bran Stark, right? And Littlefinger seems to consistently uh, screw Tyrion over in more and more creative ways until now he's just full on framing Tyrion for the death of Joffrey. I guess because he's the one who hired the comic dwarves to perform, right? And he knew that that would make Tyrion upset and would force a confrontation between him and Joffrey. So it was kind of Littlefinger who caused the whole issue with Tyrion. Uh, and of course, then we're treated to the brilliant battle between the crazy, flamboyant, slightly evil in the books, Oberyn Martell, against the admittedly even more evil The Mountain, and also sort of subjected to the image of the Dornish sorcerer getting his head crushed in. But The Mountain's dead too, ish. So, yeah, good. Um, Although Tyrion's going to get killed for the one crime he didn't commit. Uh, he like I think at some point in the book he like has a bard who was going to blackmail him murdered and put in a stew. But other than that, right? For once, uh, this one crime is something that Tyrion didn't do. Uh, Thankfully, for depending on how you look at it, thankfully he gets rescued by his brother Jaime, returned from the Riverlands, a new man, only without a hand. Um, he and Jaime enlists the help of Lord Varys the Spider to break Tyrion out. He poisons the guards and gives Jaime the keys and helps Tyrion escape. Only Jaime feels the need to drop a truth bomb on his little brother. He informs Tyrion that his first wife, Tysha, was not a prostitute, that she actually was in love with Tyrion, and all that horrible stuff that was done to her was just Tywin Lannister's idea of, I guess, teaching his son a lesson. I'm not sure Tywin actually needs a reason to be an absolute piece of crap, but oh well. Um, Tyrion is upset that Jaime never told him the truth and sort of swears torturous vengeance upon his brother and sister, which is a different flavor of relationship than I was aware of. I guess the show didn't actually cover that part. Um, what do you know? Uh, but Tyrion makes Varys lead him to the Tower of the Hand through all the secret passages throughout the Red Keep. and he slips through the hearth and finds Shay in Tywin's bed. Shay being Tyrion's former girlfriend. And he strangles her. Like, she's this crying girl talking about how Tywin frightens her and might have threatened her. And Tyrion murders her in cold blood. There's like no mercy, and and barely a moment's hesitation. Um, yeah, and then he kills Tywin too while he's at it. He shoots him with a crossbow bolt while the old guy's sitting on a toilet. As it happens, upon his death and loosening of his bowels, Lord Tywin did not, in fact, shit gold, um, as the legend states. And then Tyrion slips out to join Varys, the trustworthy spider, across the narrow sea in some wild schemes with Illyrio Mopatis, and I'm sure everything's fine on that front. Yeah, and that's all the sheer bullcrap going on in King's Landing. There's really one more thing I wanted to bring up. It's sort of two things now that I come to think about it, but both have to do with the undead, sort of. First, I've talked about the North and the South and all that, but now I want to talk about the true North. I want to talk about the bloody king beyond the wall, Mance Rayder, who's absolutely nothing like the guy on the show. Great actor, not Mance Rayder. Mance Rayder has this multicolored cloak and all these smiles and jests. He's a bard, a musician. He plays the harp, and he likes to sing bawdy songs and put dye in his hair and go in disguise. And then the next minute, he's cold and calculating, no humor to him at all, and threatening to cut off Jon Snow's head. He's sort of this two-sided coin, this charming master of disguise, musician, and then the cold, calculating king beyond the wall. Uh, and, Jon's up there hanging out with them because he's pretending to have joined the wildlings, and Mance is not having any of that. He wants to believe Jon, don't get me wrong, and that was probably a slight mistake on his part. He kept giving Jon opportunities to prove himself. Even so, with Jon's sabotage, he almost breaks through the wall. It costs him a lot, but man, does he try. And he's got a good reason to do it. Winter is coming, and Mance has got to protect his people. The Black Brothers won't treat with him, so he's got to take drastic measures to save his pregnant wife and his sister-in-law and their clans and followers. I mean, it is all for naught still, because Stannis, the freaking Manus Baratheon, rides out of the east, setting things on fire and looking to fight the final battle against the White Walkers. I guess all your careful planning won't save you from a surprise Baratheon warlord, Mance. Yeah. Uh, so, speaking of whites, we're introduced also in A Storm of Swords to Beric Dondarrion, the undead lightning lord with a magic flaming sword even Stannis would envy. He has a fight with a hound, and there's some great Arya chapters with him, but there's something else. After the Red Wedding, Beric and his company, with the Red Priest Thoros of Myr and this really cool archer and a bard and this guy Lemoncloak, who's got a cool name. Well, they come upon the body of Cat Stark, and they bring her back from the dead. Cat returns after spending 3 days dead and rotten in the river. And she comes back with her throat slit, with these eyes of flame, and she hates This was my first experience with Lady Stoneheart. Oh my god. Lady Stoneheart, cat come back from the dead to kill Freys and Lannisters without remorse, and it was terrifying. Uh, I shudder to think what she might do now in Feast and in Dance, but it can't be good. This is not Cat Stark. This is a twisted, angry, eerie, undead creature. And that's the way the book ends, with Lady Stoneheart and a promise that A Feast for Crows will be dark and terrible and bloody. Uh, a feast for crows, if you will. Yeah. I'll see you then.